trade relations. On 21 May 2014, China and Russia signed a $400 billion gas deal. Currently, Russia is supplying natural gas to China. China became the world's largest trading nation in 2013 as measured by the sum of imports and exports, as well as the world's biggest commodity importer. Comprising roughly 45% of maritime's dry bulk market. By 2016, China was the largest trading partner of 124 other countries. China is the largest trading partner for the ASEAN nations, with a total trade value of $345.8 billion in 2015, accounting for 15.2% of ASEAN's total trade. ASEAN is also China's largest trading partner. In 2020, China became the largest trading partner of the European Union for goods, with the total value of goods trade reaching nearly $700 billion. China, along with ASEAN, Japan, South Korea, Australia and New Zealand, is a member of the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, the world's largest free trade area, covering 30% of the world's population and economic output. China became a member of the World Trade Organization, WTO, in 2001. In 2004, it proposed an entirely new East Asia Summit, EAS, framework as a forum for regional security issues. The EAS, which includes ASEAN plus 3, India, Australia and New Zealand, held its inaugural summit in 2005. China has had a long and complex trade relationship with the United States. In 2000, the United States Congress approved Permanent Normal Trade Relations, PNTR, with China, allowing Chinese exports in at the same low tariffs as goods from most other countries. China has a significant trade surplus with the United States, its most important export market. In the early 2010s, U.S. politicians argued that the Chinese yuan was significantly undervalued, giving China an unfair trade advantage. Since the turn of the century, China has followed a policy of engaging with African nations for trade and bilateral cooperation. In 2019, Sino-African trade totaled $208 billion, having grown 20 times over 2 decades. According to Madison Condon, China finances more infrastructure projects in Africa than the World Bank and provides billions of dollars in low-interest loans to the continent's emerging economies. China maintains extensive and highly diversified trade links with the European Union. China has furthermore strengthened its trade ties with major South American economies and is the largest trading partner of Brazil, Chile, Peru, Uruguay, Argentina, and several others. China's Belt and Road Initiative has expanded significantly over the last 6 years and, as of April 2020, includes 138 countries and 30 international organizations. In addition to intensifying foreign policy relations, the focus here is particularly on building efficient transport routes. The focus is particularly on the maritime Silk Road, with its connections to East Africa and Europe, and there are Chinese investments or related declarations of intent at numerous ports such as Gwadar, Tianjin, Hambantota, Piraeus and Trieste. However, many of these loans, made under the Belt and Road Program, are unsustainable, and China has faced a number of calls for debt relief from debtor nations. Territorial disputes. Taiwan, ever since its establishment after the Chinese Civil War, the PRC, has claimed the territories governed by the Republic of China, ROC, a separate political entity today commonly known as Taiwan, as a part of its territory. It regards the island of Taiwan as its Taiwan province, Kinmen and Matsu as a part of Fujian province and islands the ROC controls in the South China Sea as a part of Hainan province and Guangdong province. These claims are controversial because of the complicated cross-strait relations, with the PRC treating the One China principle as one of its most important diplomatic principles. Land border disputes. China has resolved its land borders, with 12 out of 14 neighboring countries having pursued substantial compromises in most of them. As of 2022, China currently has a disputed land border with India, Sino-Indian border dispute, and Bhutan. Maritime border disputes. China is additionally involved in maritime disputes with multiple countries over the ownership of several small islands in the East and South China Seas, such as Socotra Rock, the Senkaku Islands and the entirety of South China Sea Islands, along with the EEZ disputes over East China Sea. Sociopolitical issues and human rights. China uses a massive espionage network of cameras, facial recognition software, sensors, surveillance of personal technology, and a social credit system as a means of social control of persons living in the country. The Chinese democracy movement, social activists, and some members of the Chinese Communist Party believe in the need for social and political reform. While economic and social controls have been significantly relaxed in China since the 1970s, political freedom is still tightly restricted. The Constitution of the People's Republic of China states that the fundamental rights of citizens include freedom of speech, freedom of the press, the right to a fair trial, freedom of religion, universal suffrage, and property rights. However, in practice, these provisions do not afford significant protection against criminal prosecution by the state. Although some criticisms of government policies and the ruling Communist Party are tolerated, censorship of political speech and information, most notably on the Internet, are routinely used to prevent collective action. By 2020, China plans to give all its citizens a personal, social credit score based on how they behave. The social credit system, first piloted in 2014, is considered a form of mass surveillance which uses big data analysis technology. A number of foreign governments, foreign press agencies, and those have criticized China's human rights record, alleging widespread civil rights violations such as detention without trial, forced abortions, forced confessions, torture, restrictions of fundamental rights, and excessive use of the death penalty. The government suppresses popular protests and demonstrations that it considers a potential threat to social stability, as was the case with the Tiananmen Square protests of 1989. The Chinese state is regularly accused of large-scale repression and human rights abuses in Tibet and Xinjiang, including violent police crackdowns and religious suppression throughout the Chinese nation. At least 1 million members of China's Muslim Uyghur minority have been detained in mass detention camps, termed vocational education and training centers, aimed at changing the political thinking of detainees, their identities, and their religious beliefs. According to the U.S. Department of State, actions including political indoctrination, torture, physical and psychological abuse, forced sterilization, sexual abuse, and forced labor are common in these facilities. The state has also sought to control offshore reporting of tensions in Xinjiang, intimidating foreign-based reporters by detaining their family members. According to a 2020 report, China's treatment of Uyghurs meets UN definition of genocide, and several groups called for a UN investigation. On 19 January 2021, the United States Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, announced that the United States Department of State had determined that genocide and crimes against humanity had been perpetrated by China against the Uyghurs. 2019-20 Hong Kong protests global studies from Pew Research Center in 2014 and 2017 ranked the Chinese government's restrictions on religion as among the highest in the world, despite low to moderate rankings for religious-related social hostilities in the country. The Global Slavery Index estimated that in 2016 more than 3.8 million people were living in conditions of modern slavery, or 0.25% of the population, including victims of human trafficking, forced labor, forced marriage, child labor, and state-imposed forced labor. The state-imposed forced system was formally abolished in 2013, but it is not clear to which extent its various practices have stopped. The Chinese penal system includes labor prison factories, detention centers, and re-education camps, collectively known as Leige, reform through labor. The Leige Research Foundation in the United States estimated that there were over 1,000 slave labor prisons and camps in China. In 2019, a study called for the mass retraction of more than 400 scientific papers on organ transplantation because it fears the organs were obtained unethically from Chinese prisoners. While the government says 10,000 transplants occur each year, a report by the Falun Gong IETAC alleged that between 60,000 and 100,000 organs are transplanted each year and claimed that this gap was being made up by executed prisoners of conscience.